Modern society has built its fortress on the quicksand of illusion. Everything revolves around excess. Excess work, excess consumption, excess information, excess vanity. Every day we are suffocated by an avalanche of stimuli that promise happiness and belonging, yet deliver only anxiety and emptiness. The world today has convinced us that to live is to accumulate, that to exist is to possess, that human worth can be measured by the size of a bank account, by the brand stamped on an object, or by the artificial shine of an appearance. But this is the lie that imprisons multitudes, the sweet poison that numbs the conscience. True life is not found in the accumulation of things, but in the lightness of existing with the essential, not in reckless haste, but in the natural rhythm of time, not in inhuman competition, but in the freedom of simply being. The simple life is the only true life, and all of modern complexity is nothing but a sophisticated form of slavery. The tragedy of our age is that we have traded depth for distraction. We have mistaken noise for meaning and busyness for purpose. The more we strive to own, the less we belong to ourselves. The more we chase after status, the more fragile and dependent we become. A society built on appearances inevitably creates people who live in fear of being seen without their masks. It is not wealth that enslaves us, but the endless hunger for it. It is not technology that corrupts us, but our blind submission to its constant demands. What we call progress often feels more like an elegant cage, sleek, polished, efficient, yet still a cage. And behind its bars, the human spirit withers. The truth is far simpler. Though we resist it with all our strength, we need far less than we imagine. A quiet meal with a loved one nourishes more than the most elaborate banquet. A morning sunrise humbles every artificial luxury. A walk under open skies restores a peace no city of concrete can buy. What we truly hunger for is not more possessions but more presence, not more things but more time. The irony is that in our race to gain everything, we have forgotten how to simply be. Yet society will not admit this truth because simplicity threatens its foundations. An individual who learns to live with little becomes ungovernable. He is no longer seduced by advertisements, nor enslaved by the approval of others. He cannot be manipulated with fear of loss, because he understands that what matters cannot be taken away. This is why simplicity is revolutionary. It undermines the very engines of greed and control that drive the modern world. To embrace it is to rebel quietly, yet powerfully, against a culture that thrives on our discontent. And so, the call is clear. Return to simplicity, not as resignation, but as liberation. To live simply is not to live less. It is to live more fully, more truthfully, more freely. The simple life is not a retreat from reality, but an encounter with it. It strips away illusions until all that remains is what has always mattered: love, peace, presence, and the freedom to breathe without chains. The world may continue to build its fortresses of excess, but those who choose simplicity will have already found what the restless multitudes seek in vain. The modern man, proud of his technology and material achievements, has become the poorest of all beings, poor in time, poor in peace, poor in meaning. He works to the point of exhaustion to buy objects he does not need, to sustain appearances that do not fulfill him, and to feed a system that is never satisfied. The logic of the world is cruel. The more we produce, the further we drift from ourselves. The more we own, the less free we become. The progress we were promised revealed itself to be a golden prison, where an excess of choices turns into paralysis, and an excess of comfort breeds dependence. The simple life, which should have been the foundation of all existence, has been replaced by a labyrinth of useless complexities. And so, instead of living as human beings, we have been reduced to cogs in a machine that consumes our vital energy in exchange for crumbs of artificial pleasure. No wonder there has never been so much loneliness, so much depression, so much dissatisfaction. We have lost contact with the essence of life. The simple life is not poverty. It is not blind renunciation. It is not the absence of achievement. It is, in fact, the highest form of wealth. The freedom of not being enslaved by what is unnecessary. It is looking at the sun and realizing that no luxury surpasses the joy of a sunrise. It is sitting at a table with a loved one and understanding that no banquet is worth more than genuine presence. It is walking through nature and feeling that no city of concrete can offer the same peace. True luxury is having time, having health, having clarity of spirit. Everything beyond that is superfluous, and everything superfluous weighs us down. The world, however, has taught us to carry ever heavier burdens. Burdens of debt, of commitments, of expectations, of fabricated desires. And the tragedy is that we take pride in these chains, calling them success, when in truth, they are nothing but polished shackles. The simple life, on the other hand, teaches us to break these chains and recover what was stolen from us, the right to live fully. But what does it mean to live fully? It means to be present in the moment without the mind enslaved by the past or the future. It means to enjoy what we already have without the anguish of always wanting more. It means to work not as a beast of burden, but as someone who recognizes in effort a form of dignity, not condemnation. It means to be master of your days, not merely a survivor of your hours. The simple life restores to the human being the awareness that the essential has always been within reach. We do not need mansions. We need a roof to shelter us. We do not need banquets. We need food that nourishes us. We do not need an army of virtual friends. We need a few true bonds. We do not need fame. We need meaning. Yet the society of spectacle has made us believe otherwise, pushing us into an endless race where everyone runs side by side, but no one knows where they are going. It is the simple life that restores direction, because in it there is no race, only walking. The system fears simplicity because simplicity is revolutionary. A simple man is a free man, and a free man cannot be manipulated. Whoever learns to live with little does not submit to the blackmail of consumption, does not bow to the illusions of advertising, does not let himself be dragged by the fear of losing what he never needed. The simple life dismantles the entire logic of unrestrained capitalism, for it proves that happiness is not for sale, that fulfillment is not found in the mall, that peace does not fit in a showcase. And that is why it is constantly ridiculed, associated with naivety or failure. But there is nothing wiser than simplifying, nothing braver than letting go, nothing more subversive than saying no to what is not essential. The simple life is an act of resistance against the empire of appearance, a silent revolution that begins within each human being and spreads like an indomitable flame. Yet to embrace the simple life requires courage, courage to disappoint the crowd, to swim against the current, to refuse the empty spectacle that everyone applauds. It takes courage to disconnect from the dependence on others' approval and to accept that happiness is not measured in figures or likes. The simple life demands radical choices, trading status for serenity, consumption for contemplation, haste for presence. It is not an easy path, for it goes against everything modern culture has imposed as truth, but it is the only true path, for it reconciles us with what we truly are. Living beings, fragile, finite, possessing nothing definitive except the time we have been given. And to waste that time chasing illusions is the greatest tragedy of all. The simple life is also a return to the natural. Human beings belong to the earth, to the rhythm of the seasons, to the cycle of days and nights. But we have forgotten this. Trapped in buildings, immersed in screens, alienated from the sky, from the wind, from the rain, from the trees, from silence. The more we distance ourselves from nature, the more we distance ourselves from ourselves. Simplicity restores our contact with what is real, with what cannot be bought or reproduced, the beauty of a quiet afternoon, the freshness of pure water, the song of a bird that asks nothing in return. It is in this contact that we rediscover the sacred, not as dogma but as living experience. Whoever learns to live simply realizes that they already possess everything. The rest is illusion. And perhaps at the end of all things, the great revelation is precisely this. The simple life is not one option among many. It is the only true life. Everything else is noise, mirage, deception. The modern world, with all its dazzling offerings, may place in our hands technology, comfort, and an abundance of goods. But these do not set us free. They dazzle, they entertain, they distract, but they do not liberate. Without the wisdom of simplification, without the courage to strip life back to its essence, We remain nothing more than well-dressed slaves, imprisoned in cages gilded with luxury, applauded by society, yet suffocated by emptiness. The simple life is not poverty. It is clarity. It is not deprivation. It is liberation. It is the key that opens the heavy door of the self-made prison, the antidote to alienation, the cure for the great disease of excess that has infected our age. For in the simple life, the human being reclaims what was always his birthright: dignity, joy, truth. Dignity, because he no longer bows before the false gods of status and accumulation. Joy, because he discovers that happiness was never hidden in possessions, but always present in moments, in relationships, in silence. Truth, because he finally sees through the illusions that bind the masses and grasps what it truly means to exist. The simple life restores us to our natural rhythm, breathing without haste, eating without greed, loving without masks, existing without fear. It rescues us from the intoxication of artificial lights and returns us to the brilliance of the stars. And that is why, in the midst of the confusion and haste of contemporary life, the most urgent call resounds like a cry from the depths: simplify, strip away the unnecessary, break the chains of consumerism, step out of the race that leads nowhere. Stop measuring your worth in numbers, brands, or applause. Learn again the sacred art of being present in your own existence. The simple life is not a retreat, not an escape. It is a declaration of independence. It is standing tall in a world of illusions and saying, "I will not be bought, I will not be deceived, I will not be enslaved." To truly live is not to accumulate, it is to be. It is not to run endlessly. It is to walk steadily, with awareness of each step. It is not to conquer lands, trophies, or titles. It is to exist authentically, without masks or chains. The simple life invites us to slow down, to breathe, to taste, to notice, to rediscover what we once knew but forgot, that the essence of life is already within us. To embrace simplicity is to awaken, and those who dare to embrace it will finally discover, perhaps for the first time, what it really means to be alive.